probably the first initial ones were like, Vulmanulan?
Right. We combine the two names.
Romkan?
Volrom.
No.
The planet Volrom. Hail, Internet! It's Paul, it's Matt, the Dork Lords. We are here talking about Star Trek Discovery, Season 3, Episode 7, Unification 3. All right, we open with a personal log from Michael Burnham. She's newly demoted. She is questioning her place on the crew. She goes to Book's ship. They have a sexual encounter.
Yes. Of the third kind.
Unification 3. He says that she has an endearing messianic complex, which seems appropriate.
Sure.
We end the episode back with Book and Michael looking out at the stars. Michael said that she does belong with the ship. She asks Book, what he thinks about that. He's not so sure, but he does say that she feels like home. Paul, I'm glad that you're seated. You're not in risk of falling over in shock.
No.
I want you to mark this episode, Season 3, Episode 7. This was the first time in the series history Michael Burnham was the hero of an episode. There it is.
Ooh,
Da-da-da.
all right.
If you were playing Michael Burnham as the hero of an episode bingo, this is where you'd finally play that bingo. Oh! Sarcasm. In this case, she's the only person that can solve the problem because she is Spock's sister, and hence the only person in the quadrant that can unify our Vulcan Romulan alliance and the Federation. So, we did have that thing of, she's been demoted, she's no longer number one. We correctly predicted that Tilly would become the new number one. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, but
sure.
So you would think,
the B story.
You would think, hey, she's demoted now. It's going to be harder for her to be the hero. She's not the first officer anymore. But no. Now that she gets onto the bridge, she gets to talk to the president of Navarre. That's the new planet of the Romulan Vulcan Alliance. And then, kind of out of nowhere, basically the whole point of this visit is we want to get the data from this experiment that the Vulcans were running that was going to be some kind of like a wormhole insto travel. Pew, 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 pew. It seemed to be going wrong. They said, there's danger. Federation said, keep doing that experiment. We need a replacement for dilithium. And so as a result, Vulcan thought, A, that the burn was maybe caused by that experiment, the continuation of that experiment, and B, it led to them breaking off with the Federation. So the point of going to this place, it might be like, hey, we could bring them back to the Federation, but also we want the data. We want the data from this experiment to figure out what happened in the burn. So when it becomes obvious they ain't going to get the data, Michael Burnham brings up this, I had not heard of this before. I don't know if it's new for this episode or if it's I'm just not well versed in Vulcan history, but it's like hey, prove your thesis. Look, I challenge the ancient ways of defending your life. Anyway, so there's a ritual and you can't deny it. So it's like, doom, we're locked in. Obviously, it works out in the end because that's the way the story's going to go.
Yes.
But it is another moment of like, Saru had just said, look, I can't trust you. So you're not my number one anymore. I'm going to leave you as a commander and you can be the chief of the science department. Here's your warning. And like days later, she could have talked to him about this, right? It had to be at least an option that, hey, they may say, no, we're not going to give you the data. So she knew what she was going to do in that situation. Didn't tell anybody. Just was like, there's this cool thing with the Vulcans that will make them have to respond to us. Probably piss them off in the process. But I'm going to unilaterally make this decision for the crew.
Because it worked out. Like, you came to us and we got to tell you how much we hate the Federation. And that's why we don't want to give you this information. And then you were like, you know what? I'm taking this request back.
Uh,
I heard what you said, and I'm now withdrawing the request. And of course, not knowing that the president would be like, I can just give you this.
I was waiting to do this the whole time. I just wanted to, piss you off, make you have to jump through hoops. So good. Well done, hoop jumper. Paul, your theory has taken a little bit of a hit.
Yes, it has.
Your theory, just to catch people up, was that Michael Burnham, perhaps her arc for this season is to kind of discover that, in fact, I'm not really cut out for this life to be on the Discovery, and then maybe she gets her own ship and takes off, at least temporarily, maybe by the end of the season. But she kind of had that arc in this episode.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm really part of the crew. Hour later, I'm part of the crew. So it'll be trickier for your thing to come true. Still could happen.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to ask you. Do you want a Matt book?
Wow.
The more reason she has to stay on this ship, the less it makes me wonder exactly what kind of future she's going to have with Book.
If you were to pick one person that we have seen this season most likely to die by the end of the season, it is Book. It's definitely Book. And so, right, there doesn't seem to be a place for him at this point. He wants to be with her, but he doesn't want to, be part of the Federation. And so he's going to try to work it out. My guess is he'll be like informal consultant to the Discovery or something. And then at some point, perhaps he'll get fridged. Yeah. I can see that. My theory also has taken one step forward, one step back. My theory was that the sounds, the music that's been so prevalent was some kind of a sound wave that just blew up the dilithium and caused the burn.
That's your theory? I think you might be using the term sound wave liberally or something. Because sound waves, of course, don't travel that fast.
Good point.
So,
good point.
I think it might be more likely that this tune, this melody, is encoded in some way.
Sure.
Either it has information or
there was a signal sent out that
Yeah.
contained these notes, and so you're right. Maybe it wasn't just a sound wave and be like, as opposed to whoop.
Yeah, no, maybe it was a signal that was digital or in some ways that could travel. And within that was the tune, was that song. But it had other information that said, "Oh, and if you got any dilithium, blow up."
Well clarified, sir. Yes, that's the theory. And while that's still up in the air as to whether or not that happened, we are seeing, especially from the trailer for next week, they have the data now, and they've been able to reverse course on all of the where the signals went to a single spot. And so I assume they're going to journey to that spot, which seems to be where the signal that caused the burn emanated from. So that suggests to me again that there's perhaps a root cause and like some villain that's about to be announced.
Exposed.
The part that I think of taking a step back is Burnham's mom. I had said that maybe Burnham's mom had somehow attempted to stop the burn, and in so doing, then the burn had gotten her name, some part of her name associated with the catastrophe. That was a reach. I get it, and it's more of a reach now because we do, in fact, see Burnham's mom in this episode. She turns up to be Michael's advocate in this defend your thesis trial. Yes. She is a member of the Kuwat Malat, the Absolute Candor folks, which we met in the Picard series.
Yes.
So we don't exactly know all of her the history here, but it sounds like she ended up getting taken in by. She was really injured, and the Romulans, the nuns, took her in. Basically, yeah. It's kind of what I got out.
I think you're right.
Star Trek's done these trial type episodes, right? Like Data had to prove he was a sentient being in a trial setting, and that's been a thing. It's usually, it's a little lower cost as well. You got like a set more or less, and then you don't have to worry about a bunch of special effects. You can save a little cash.
Yes. Yes.
And so Michael is trying to get the data and defend her information in front of a 3-judge panel. There's the Vulcan purist, there's a Romulan purist, and then there's the compromise in-between person. She thinks she can convince the Vulcan purist, but in fact, it ends up being the Romulan guy who seems to be the most agreeable. Her mom basically, in order to help her make a good effect on the president who's sitting in the audience, she says there's another audience here. She kind of, it seems like she turns on Michael, right? She's just like, you're terrible. You cost your captain's life. Think of all the terrible mistakes you've made. Why should we believe you?
Yeah, that was a great look of betrayal.
Yeah.
Like, Mom, what are you saying?
Ixnay on the I got my Apton K killed a whatever. Through the course of this trial, Michael comes to realize the importance of the Discovery and the crew to her, and I suppose the Federation as well. We see also, I assumed there would be some kind of a Spock flashback, and there was.
Yes,
although
it
is actually Leonard Nimoy. It was from the Next Generation Unification episodes, since this is Unification 3. We learned that Spock's work did pay off eventually, and that the Romulans and Vulcans did unite on this planet Navarre.
Probably the first initial ones were like, Vulmulan?
Right. I think, we combine the two names.
Romcan?
Volrom. The planet Volrom.
Now, apparently the name was in a sort of specialty story about Vulcans. It was first introduced. The concept of Navarre is basically about duality. So perhaps, you can see that representing those two cultures. And the way they sort of set it up too, where the Romulans were aggressive, the Vulcans in their past were, aggressive, but they've been tamping that down. So perhaps that's the duality, and that's why they decided to call the planet Navarre.
So as we guessed, Tilly has become is given the offer of, hey, you be the acting first officer, while Saru looks for a permanent selection.
Yes.
And then by the end, a section of the crew that we know anyway, is like, say yes. And she has a little meeting of the minds with Michael, who is, she realizes she being Tilly is like, oh, you're staying on the ship. Oh, great. And Michael gives her blessing. The fact that she's the acting first officer, to what end? Do you think it's just like, in other words, I'm giving you a probationary period, and then if you're great at it, you're the first officer? Or if it's literally like, I'm looking for a legit one, but for the next 2 weeks, you can be my first officer. I don't know. What are your thoughts on?
Yeah, story-wise, I think they wanted to have a reason to put more of a bullet on the fact that she's merely an ensign. And so it's quite a leap for her.
Quite a leap. We theorized that there might be some jealousy last week. It doesn't seem like at the moment there's
interesting that in all the episodes we've had so far, they couldn't have promoted her. It's not like she hasn't been important to the stories that we've seen.
That's right.
Perhaps they were sort of like, we have to, we're not in good communication with Starfleet.
Yeah, there's no time for promotions.
So yeah, they may be intending to have Saru talk to other people who were interested that weren't in the group that was like, oh, we'll follow you. Or, maybe they wanted to set up something interesting where somebody was like, oh, I would follow her, but then I want to steal her job. It's like, oh yeah, please do it. Just so I look even better when I apply,
I just, to me, it feels like the only, I'm sure there's a story logic for this. In fact, I feel fairly confident in saying that at some point here in the next 6 episodes, Saru will somehow be incapacitated or away from the ship, and it'll be up to Tilly to run things.
Yeah, that's what I was suggesting earlier, which I think they may have been in interviews suggesting or hinting at.
In a non-story context, I would think the most legit reason for you to take Tilly, an ensign, and say, I want to make you acting first officer while I look for one, would be if you're looking for a first officer off the ship. If you've gone to Admiral Vance and said, "Hey, do you know anybody that could be a first officer on the Discovery?" Because it seems to make more sense if you're legit looking for someone else that you just go ahead and take like a likely candidate from the bridge crew that might well be your permanent first officer and make them your acting first officer, in my opinion. But
I don't know. I mean, if they plan to have an actual episode or part of an episode where they intend to have Saru interview people who were interested in the job, after the time that she's been doing it, presumably, right? Because you first want to, vet candidates and give enough time for them to apply. And then,
it seems like there would be kind of a slap in the face to Tilly in a way, right?
Because that's what she said. He said until I could find someone permanent.
True, but I mean...
And again, like I said, there are only so many people in that room. There could be other people on the ship who might be like, "You're going to have people apply? Then maybe I'll do it."
Here's my resume.
Maybe Saru might be like, "I hadn't thought of you before." It's like, yeah, that's why I'm in here now.
I'm just thinking, I felt like the unspoken part of that was, and you, Tilly, are one of the possible candidates.
Well, yeah.
As opposed to, I just picked you because there's zero chance you'll actually be first officer, so you're not going to piss anybody off.
Yes. Yeah.
But she doesn't even say the line. She goes, "Did you pick me because I'm competent or compliant?" And I was like, good question, Tilly.
Yeah. You were like, "I've got more questions you might want to ask him."
Some other questions.
What? 2, are you crazy? 3.
That's right. Have you taken anything recently that might be affecting your judgment in this moment?
Have you been recently hit in the head?
Right. So Tilly is first officer. Burnham has decided to stay on the ship. She's going to be, I guess, chief of the science division. They have the data from the Vulcan Romulan Alliance. That data, obviously, from the trailer for next week, leads them to kind of the singularity that starts this, wherever the burn emanated from. They've figured that out. And Book is still on the ship, I guess, been wondering what his place in the world is until he gets fridged.
I think it's funny to think about his actual motivations, which is saving these aquatic creatures or whatever they are.
Right, kind of rare species. Yeah.
It's an argument for there being a federation again, so that you can have some teeth to environmental laws, and then all of Starfleet then is trying to protect these creatures and not merely
just whatever individual decides it's important.
Yeah. So that's his stake, even though he hasn't expressed that yet. But who knows the effect by the end of the season, right? One of the things that presumably will happen is they'll solve this problem of dilithium either by having more of it so that people can do more traveling, or
replacing it.
Replacing it, right? And so I assume that they're trying, and who knows if it's by the end of the season or the end of next season, is they'll get to a point where, good, now we can travel the way we were traveling before, and people are signing up to be in the Federation again, and therefore we're starting to put those rules back in place. And then he's got a decision, I guess, about, I guess he can just, get involved in some aquarium or something. And work.
Welcome to the shed.
I could see Burnham having her experiences on the ship, coming home, and then booting up some sort of hollow thing that communicates with Book wherever he is, and then they can say, "Oh, how was your day? How was your day?" And then they can have some long distance relationship.
True, although I feel like they're going to keep him as an active member of whatever the Discovery's doing. He's a part of it.
Yeah, and it's certainly the thing I don't think we've talked about, even though he's talked about how he doesn't want to be part of the Federation. Maybe eventually
be tied
he says, because you're my home, and your home is here, then my home is here.
Right,
and
right.
I'm willing to reluctantly become a part of the Federation, perhaps.
That would be funny if next episode he's like, well, I hear there's an opening for first officer. Here's my resume. Don't mind if I
Until he goes,
do.
Book! It's like, I figure if he put you on.
Yeah, exactly. I think I got a shot.
I got
here.
a shot.
Yeah. It is when you think about when he's, says like, oh, you have this endearing messianic complex, whatever. Part of me, like my response might be, well, have you seen the show? Like every episode does revolve around me. It would be weird if I didn't in that moment.
Yes.
Like all of the plot threads. Right through.
Yeah, if at the end of the when they just actually discover what the answer to the burn is, and it's not at all related to Burnham, she's going to be the one, probably the first one to say, "Really?
Yeah, right.
It's not. I mean, come on.
Let's keep
burn.
Let's burn.
That's why I thought it was important.
I'm just looking around for signs that I was here in the future, and then that's what happened. Is there anything? No. There's no Red Angel suit
it's
around
like telling
here?
we found the answer. It's like, I don't think we have. No.
It'd be like actually Burnham starts like dropping stuff like clues on the planet. Oh, look! I was here. Oh yeah, you're right. I was here trying to stop it. Anyway, sorry everybody.
I thought the Tribunal, I liked them. I thought all those interactions were fun. I mean, it does feel, a little awkward putting it into this sort of ritual, this explicit ritual, when they could have perhaps, it's like, you seldom, it's like, I guess, in that Federation episode, you did see people sitting at a conference table. But it does seem like that's the way it should have happened. It's like, I got some papers right here. They're the results you're wanting. I don't think so. Can we get some coffee?
Right, I've got a PowerPoint. I'm just gonna.
Yeah.
Okay. Click, click, click.
Yes, the Federation sucks.
Who put that in there? Obviously, it was another episode. I think we talked about one before that wasn't like pew 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 pew. It was more.
Yeah.
We learned some background. We learned some character information. Obviously, Burnham had to do some soul searching.
Yes.
She was forced into it, and so I think in that regard, it was effective in that way.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I've heard the point made too about how she's sort of taking it on faith that the Federation that she knew is the one that she left. The Vulcan or whatever she was talking to was saying that they had done things that made us not trust. Perhaps it's merely that pushing them to the experiment, but it didn't feel that way. It felt like there were a number of things that made them wary and want to leave the Federation as a result. So the fact that she's so confident, and yet that's what they were highlighting, the fact that, okay, if you're so confident, that why you keep disobeying orders and doing
right. No, that was my thought. I had that argument a couple episodes back, which is like, for somebody who's so passionate about bringing the Federation back, she seems to be at odds with the Federation so often. But yeah, good point. We don't know. You're suggesting that maybe in this 1,000 years, the Federation maybe became more militaristic or became more untrustworthy in some ways, or there was a reason why they split off, and not just because the burn happened, but because they became jerks or something.
Right. And it certainly would be like typically when we have throughout the history of Star Trek, it's sort of like, oh, we were good until that one admiral just had to make us do something bad. Well, we got rid of him, so now we're good again.
He blew up. Now we're fine.
Oh yes, Shatner or Kirk has this irrational bigotry against Klingons. But he got better. It'd be interesting if they actually, I guess one of the things that could be a criticism of them, especially when you're talking about the nature of the threat that their expansion brought about, you could certainly see the parallels between that and the biological threat of global warming or something like that. It's like, oh, we're using our resources to the point where it's causing causing us pain, and so it'd be interesting to see if they're supposed to be expanding benevolently, nicely, but why does that have to be? Why does it? There could be other flaws that they have, perhaps, that they're brought out. Although I'll be shocked if that's the case. It'd be one of those situations where it's like, ooh, we know Starfleet's actually not so good, but that's okay. So yeah, I think they'll probably still be very cautious about how they, it'd be a bad admiral who did something terrible, or.
We'll be back talking about episode 8, where maybe we learn the root cause of the burn. And we're also talking Mandalorian. We're getting close to the end of the season, in fact.
Yes.
So we'll be back talking about those things. Thank you, as always, Paul. Appreciate it, sir.
You're welcome, man.
Talk to you next time.